Jesus said to the 12 apostles, "A disciple is not above the teacher, nor a slave above the master. It is enough for the disciple to be like the teacher, and the slave like the master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more will they malign those of his household? So have no fear of them. For nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, and nothing secret that will not become known. What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. And even the hairs of your head are all counted. So do not be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. Everyone therefore who acknowledges me before others, I also will acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I also will deny before my Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's foes will be members of one's own household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. So even though I didn't preach on it last week, I hope you remember the reading from last Sunday where Jesus is sending out the 12 disciples, and he's empowered them to go out and heal people, to cast out demons. And this is the context in which this reading occurs. He says, I'm sending you out, but he sends them out with this warning that we hear today. And in our Bible study on Wednesday, I realized that there was a lot of confusion about this reading. So I'm going to go through some of this and give you some of the background before I talk about it. So Jesus begins by saying, a disciple is not above a teacher, a slave is not above a master. So forth. He says, if they've called master of the house Beelzebul, how much more will they treat those of the house? So what he's saying is, don't expect to be treated better than I. Right? If this is how they've received me, this is how they're going to receive you. Basically what he's saying. I've not been treated great. Don't expect any better. It's just fair warning. Then he goes on to say, but don't fear them. You don't need to fear them. You don't need to worry about what they're going to do, what they might know. And he even says, and don't be afraid to speak the truth, to speak about me. See, at that time, there were lots of secret societies. And this will certainly be a danger for what became known as Christianity to fall into that kind of secret society. And there were certainly groups, the Essenes and others, that fell into that, where if you joined the group, only then would you get a little bit of the kind of secret knowledge. We call that Gnosticism today. You get that secret knowledge, and the further you got along, the more of this secret knowledge you would get. Jesus says to them, no, this isn't how it is. He says, what we're doing here is open. It's public. He says, shout it from the rooftop. Whatever you've heard me say in the dark, in other words, what you've heard me say to you quietly, one-on-one in the room here, proclaim from the housetop. This is a public thing that we're doing here. It's not private. This isn't a secret society. This is for all the world to hear. He says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of what they can do to you. He says, because God knows you far better than they know you. God even knows you better than you know yourself. He says He's counted every hair on your head. Counted every hair on your head. How many of you can say that? There's a couple of you that might. No offense, Rich. Not many of us could say that we know that, so we know ourselves that well, but God does. So He says, don't be afraid. God knows you far better than you know yourself. He's watching out for you. He says, therefore, everyone who acknowledges me, I will acknowledge before the Father. In other words, if you proclaim my name before others, I'll proclaim you before the Father. He says, but anyone who denies me before others, I'll deny before the Father. Now that sounds harsh. When people hear that, it doesn't sound like the Jesus that I want to hear. But I would argue to you that this is free will in its purest and simplest form. Jesus is looking at us and saying, hey, I'm giving you the choice, plain and simple. The ball is entirely in your court. If you choose to proclaim me, I'll proclaim you. If you choose not to, that's up to you. I'll accept that decision. That's your choice. You could argue it doesn't get any fairer than that. That's not harsh. It's not anything else. It's simply saying, this is up to you. And in the historical context of free will, that's its purest form right there. But Jesus says, if you acknowledge me, if you proclaim me, I'll proclaim you. So He gives them that simple standard. He says, if you're going out to do my work and you proclaim my word, no matter what happens, I've got your back. I will proclaim you before your Father in heaven. No matter what happens, you live, you die, I will proclaim you before your Father in heaven. You will have eternal life. I promise you that. Then He goes on with the part that's a little bit tougher, I think, for most of us. He says, do not think that I've come to bring peace to the earth. And right there we say, whoa, what? I thought that's exactly what you came to bring. And if he were right here and taking questions, he might say, well, okay, yeah, that was what I hoped to bring. But you all are pretty stubborn. So this is a statement of reality. In reality, what I have brought is, let me go on. I've not come to bring peace but a sword. Now, often in Scripture, particularly in the Old Testament, we hear the sword used as an illustration, not simply as a weapon, but we hear the sword of truth, the sword of justice, the sword of righteousness. It's used to illustrate a way of God causing a choice to be made, or a way of cleansing. It's not just a weapon. So Jesus said, I've come to force a choice. I've come to make people choose here. It says, for I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. I suspect that was already happening. Just a guess. I don't think that was written. And one's foes will be members of one's own household. Now, that sounds rough, even to our ears, but in that culture, at that time and place, that was a big deal. To say you're going to be set apart from your family, potentially, that was huge. Not only was this your social construct, and you've been taught all your life that honoring them was your sacred duty, but this is also your social safety net, if you will. If something happens to you or your family, these are the people who are morally and to some degree legally bound to care for you and your loved ones. So when you cut yourself off from them, it's not just a, well, we don't get along. you've just cut yourself off from your safety rope here too. This is a big deal. He says, I've come. And if you choose me, it's going to require some other choices in your life. Now, hear me when I tell you this. Jesus isn't saying this is what I want. He's simply saying this is how it's going to be. And nowhere in all of Scripture does Jesus say to us, well, because you choose me, now you need to reject everyone else around you. Right? He doesn't say, well, because you've chosen me now, all those other people who won't choose me, now you need to reject them. You need to tell them how awful they are and unlovable and do away with them. He doesn't say that. He says, when you choose me, they might choose to reject you. Now that is a big difference here. He's saying when you make a choice that's right for you, they may choose to reject you. That's an important distinction. Because this whole warning that he's giving us is saying that the world may not receive your choice the way that you'd like for them to. And he goes on to say, whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Now again, Jesus isn't saying, if you choose to follow me, then you need to stop loving your father and mother. You need to stop loving your son and daughter. You need to stop loving your friends and your wife, your husband. He doesn't say that. What he's talking about here is priority. He says, if you're going to choose to follow me, then you need to love me first and foremost. And if we take this in the greater context of Scripture, what it also means is that when we choose to love Jesus first and foremost, to follow God's Word, that it elevates the standard by which we're called to love everyone else around us. So not only am I to continue loving my wife and children and my parents, but I'm called to love them better than I ever have before. I'm called to be more patient, more forgiving. I'm called to be kinder. I'm called to be all those things that they've wished for so many years that I would be. Jesus is saying, I'm not asking you to reject them. I'm giving you the keys here. I'm giving you the keys to better relationship. I'm giving you the keys to better understanding. I'm giving you the keys here to more loving relationships by putting your priorities in order. Because when you put me first, it will demand that you love others unselfishly. That you give up on the, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to be doing for me? If you just do that, then I would be the person you need me to be. Right? It doesn't work that way. What Jesus is talking about here is priority. Not loving others. Not rejecting others. Never rejecting others. But he is saying that if you choose to follow me, you might have to make some hard choices. You might have to make some hard choices. Because the world is not always going to readily accept what it means to be my disciple. Now, a silly example that I used in Bible study Wednesday, I say it's a silly example, but it's one that comes up almost every week here, and certainly in the summer every week. Somebody will come to me and say, and I'm not trying to offend anybody here, everybody's been in this position one way or the other, but somebody will come and say to me, Wes, I'm not going to be at church Sunday because we have so-and-so visiting. They don't like to come to church. They hate your sermons. And, they don't like Mike Buff. Usually it's Mike. I heard the sermon thing. I should that in to soften the blow for Mike. But no, people say, they don't go to church, and so, I'm just going to stay home with them. I get that. It's fine. Now, is God going to be angry with you because you miss one Sunday a year because your daughter, your friends are visiting? Are you going to get, you're going to get kicked out of heaven for that? I don't know. I hope so. No. I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. But that's not the point. Here's another way of looking at that scenario. People come, and you look at that situation, you say, you know what? I'm really thankful that you're here. I'm glad you took the time to come and visit. But, what we do on Sunday morning, or what I do on Sunday morning, we go to church. And this is what's really important to me. This is a priority for me. I'd love for you to come. You certainly don't have to. But if you want to come, that'd be great. Now, some of those people are going to say, no, thank you. It'd be great to get an hour or two away, just get to relax a little, have a little break. Some people are going to say, you know what, I hadn't been to church in a long time. That'd be great. You might be surprised. They'll come. I doubt any of them are going to say, I hate you. I'm never coming back here again. Right? But the point is, kind of a simple and silly example of saying, this is a priority for me in my life. But this can happen in a million different ways in our everyday life. When we get put in those awkward situations where the world could be friends, it could be family, it could just be society in general. The world is pulling us in one direction, but we know that God's pulling us in another way. And what are we going to do? Where is that priority going to be? Or in our closest relationships, where somebody, your spouse, your friend, a child, a parent, does something, and you know how you want to react, but you know what God's telling you, your heart's telling you. Which are you going to choose? What's going to be your priority? Are you going to trust in the Lord? Are you going to trust in what God has said? Jesus said, if you choose me, I promise good things will happen. It might not happen right this minute. It might not happen exactly the way you want it when you want it. But good things will happen. Are you going to trust in that? Or are you going to give in to that emotion and tell them what you really feel, what you really think right that minute? I've been there. It's yet to work out well for me. Maybe it has for you all, I don't know. It seems to work out a lot better when I try to be the person God's calling me. Jesus warns us over and over again. It's not going to be easy. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. It happens to me, and I can't tell you how often people come to me and say, well, why is it so hard? So for the same reason it is for everybody else. Same reason it always has been and always will be. The world is broken. Don't be surprised when it's not easy. That's how it is. You should expect that. But you should also expect God to be there in the midst of it. You should also expect God to be there to lift you up. You should also expect God to proclaim you just as you proclaim Him in the world. And that in doing so, you receive that peace, that joy, all those things that I'm always talking to you about. This is the blessing that Jesus promises us. It's the blessing that you can receive. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we give you thanks for all the many ways that you bless us. Help us to understand what it means to choose you, to acknowledge you, to proclaim you to all the world. Help us to never be afraid to share your good news with all who will listen, to share with love, with compassion, with mercy, and with dignity, to lift others up, never to tear down, so that all might know your love and forgiveness. All this we ask in your Son's holy name. Amen.